Hello, I'm Regin Ahmed with BBC World News. Our top stories. President Putin orders an inquiry after a Russian military plane bound for Syria crashes into the Black Sea, killing more than 90 people on board. Benjamin Netanyahu orders ambassadors of UN Security Council members to be reprimanded after they voted to condemn Israel's settlement building. Thousands are ordered to evacuate their homes in the Philippines as a powerful typhoon hits. The Queen misses the traditional Christmas Day service at Sandringham as she recovers from a heavy cold. But in her pre-recorded Christmas message, she'll pay tribute to ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Hello and welcome. The Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered an investigation into why a Russian military plane crashed into the Black Sea, killing all 92 people on board, including members of the internationally renowned Red Army Choir. The Tupolev 154 aircraft had taken off from the Black Sea resort of Sochi and was heading to a Russian army base in Syria, but contact was lost just minutes later, as our correspondent Steve Rosenberg reports from Moscow.
This is one of the final
Well, let's get more now with Olga Ivshina from the BBC Russian service. Olga, thank you for joining us. What can you tell us about whether there have been any developments from and reactions from Russia?
Well, a Minister of Transport has just been speaking to the press, and he says that probably they will be stopping search operation for today because it's already dark in Russia. But definitely they will resume it in the morning. They're trying to find black boxes. They're searching for the pieces of wreckage. They're also searching for the bodies. They have already found a few, and some of the relatives were going to fly to Sochi, and there are even reports that some already did. But now Minister of Transport is warning relatives not to do that, because all the bodies will be brought to Moscow to conduct DNA tests, so they ask all the relatives to go to Moscow instead.
The plane was headed for Syria, and we've heard a comment from the Syrian president. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, so the plane was heading from Moscow with a stop in Sochi to a Russian military base in, Russian Ministry of Defense says to Russian military base in Latakia. But after the plane crashed, Syrian President Bashar Assad sent a telegram to Mr. Putin, sent a note to Mr. Putin saying that, our Russian friends were going to join me and Syrian people in Aleppo. So he briefly mentioned Aleppo and celebrations there. There is a little bit of confusion, but official record is that it was going to land in Latakia in order to congratulate Russian soldiers on duty with the upcoming New Year.
Now, we believe that there were 64 members of the Red Army Choir on this plane. It's a significant number. Is that going to have a huge effect on this world-renowned musical group?
It seems that many people in Russia are shocked, and definitely all their colleagues are shocked. I think it's slightly more than 110 people working in the whole Red Army ensemble, and it's divided into three parts: the choir, dancing group, and orchestra. So music band and dancing group remained in Moscow, and the choir was flying to Syria. And of course, it is a significant loss, and they were world-recognized professionals. The image became slightly controversial after 2014, when they sang a song praising Russian soldiers' activities in Crimea, which was annexed back then. But still, they were, as professionals, they were well recognized and famous all over the world.
Olga Ivshina, as always, thank you very much. The Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered his foreign ministry to summon and reprimand the ambassadors from countries on the United Nations Security Council. Mr. Netanyahu is furious that the UN voted to condemn Israel's building of Jewish settlements in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. At a cabinet meeting, Mr. Netanyahu criticised the US but praised the incoming administration. Benjamin Netanyahu there, the Israeli leader. Well, with me now is the BBC's Middle East analyst, Alan Johnston. First of all, Alan, why is Israel taking this action? Why are they so upset?
Well, make no mistake, this was a really big moment at the UN on Friday night, real diplomatic drama. Year after year, we've watched the Americans use their veto to protect Israel against resolutions of this kind, but not this time. Suddenly, the Israelis found themselves without a friend in the world on that very important diplomatic stage, and the message that the international community sent could hardly have been stronger. It condemned the Israeli settlement building project in the occupied territories as illegal and a flagrant violation of international law. Now, the Israelis see the legal position entirely differently. They are not going to accept that verdict for one moment. They argue that they're endlessly mistreated by the UN, which they say is biased against Israel again and again. So you see the Israelis now on a major diplomatic offensive, and the reprimanding of the ambassadors on Christmas Day is just one front. Mr. Netanyahu also has the UN itself in his sights. He's ordered a review of all his country's relations with the world body, and some funding will be cut to some of its agencies. One of the smaller countries behind the moving of that resolution on Friday, Senegal, has felt Israel's wrath too. Economic funding for aid projects there has been cut. So Israel showing that diplomatically and economically it is hitting back.
Now, the US abstained in this vote under Barack Obama, but there's a changing US president coming very soon. Does that mean it's all going to blow over?
The real focus of Mr. Netanyahu's anger is the Obama administration. He clearly feels that the Obama administration maneuvered behind the scenes to deliver this diplomatic blow. Relations between the two sides have always been fairly poor, but they are dire at the moment. But you're absolutely right. The Israelis know very well that the mood is about to change dramatically in Washington. We're just about less than a month away now from a Trump presidency, and there is every indication that Mr. Trump will be a friend of Israel. The Israelis confident that better days in terms of diplomatic relations with Washington for them are coming.
Alan Johnston, our BBC Middle East analyst, thank you very much for your time. Now let's just bring you some breaking news. Officials have issued a tsunami warning in Chile after a powerful earthquake in the south of the country. The US Geological Survey says the earthquake struck 140 miles southwest of the city of Puerto Montt, and the magnitude has been measured at 7.7. Evacuations have been taking place. Well, let's speak to Paul Caruso. He is a geophysicist with the US Geological Survey, and he joins us from just outside Denver in Colorado. He's on the line. First of all, can you give us a sense of how severe this tsunami warning is?
It's just a local tsunami warning that's been issued for the coast of Chile. Tsunami warning was not issued for the Hawaiian Islands or anywhere in the United States.
And in terms of these tsunami waves, given it's a local warning, are we expecting a lot of damage, or do we just have to wait and see?
We just have to wait and see what the damage is. I imagine that the tsunami has already affected the coast of Chile. The earthquake happened approximately an hour and 50 minutes ago.
Can you tell us more about that earthquake and the strength of it and where exactly it hit?
Well, our initial magnitude was 7.7. We've revised that magnitude now to 7.6. And the earthquake epicenter was approximately 39 kilometers southwest of Puerto Quelon, Chile, which was the closest city. The earthquake was on what we call a thrust fault. And basically that is because the Pacific plate is being pushed underneath Chile in that area. And so we call that a thrust fault.
So in terms of earthquakes and tsunamis for this part of the world, is it quite unusual, or is this part of the world quite used to them?
This part of the world experiences a lot of large earthquakes. The largest earthquake that we've ever recorded here was a magnitude 9.5 in 1960, and that earthquake was north of this earthquake, approximately 800 kilometers.
Paul Caruso with the US Geological Survey, thank you so much for your time. A powerful typhoon, Knock 10, known locally as Typhoon Nina, has made landfall in the Philippines as thousands of people are being forced to evacuate their homes. The typhoon has hit the remote eastern province of Catanduanes with wind speeds of up to 240 kilometres per hour. There is no immediate official reports of damage or casualties. The military and extra emergency staff are struggling to evacuate people and prepare for any damage. Many more who have been heading home for the Christmas holiday are stranded as flights are cancelled. Well, earlier I spoke to Dr. Maha Lagme from Project NOAA, the country's hazard warning agency. He's on Luzon Island.
We are along the path of the typhoon. We're expecting the eye of the typhoon to be around this area tomorrow, about 15 hours from now. But right now there are gusts of wind. The wind is blowing, the leaves are rustling, and the bamboo are swaying.
How severe is this storm? In the context of the storm in 2013, is this a lot worse?
That one had maximum sustained winds of 235 kilometers per hour. This one is 185 kilometers per hour, so it's weaker, but nonetheless, the gusts reach about 255 kilometers per hour. That's quite strong.
Dr. Lagme, do you think the preparations have been enough in the Philippines, or are there many fears that people will be caught in this storm, especially as it's Christmas Day?
There have been a lot of preparations, warnings that have been made. Local government units have been preparing their communities. There have been a lot of preemptive evacuation, but we're still worried because everybody is in the Christmas mood. There are a lot of festivities, and that generates complacency. And we've tried to address that by getting media to disseminate the information. There are two important parts in effective disaster prevention and mitigation. One is accurate government warning, and it must be matched by community participation.
That's Dr. Maha Lagme from Project NOAA. Well, stay with us on BBC News because still to come. Some think it's tacky, for others it's an essential part of Christmas. We reveal the secret life of tinsel. This is BBC World News. I'm Regid Ahmed. The latest headlines. President Putin has ordered an inquiry after a Russian military plane bound for Syria crashes into the Black Sea, killing more than 90 people on board. Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered ambassadors of UN Security Council members to be reprimanded after they voted to condemn Israel's settlement building. The Pope has given his annual Christmas message from the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican. Speaking to thousands of worshippers in the square below, he called for the weapons to be silent in Syria and also urged for peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Our correspondent David Willey was watching the Urbi et Orbi speech, and he has this analysis for us.
Well, it was not entirely unexpected that he should devote his Urbi et Orbi, his message to the city of Rome and to the world, to the problem of world peace. He lamented the fact that there's so much conflict going on wherever practically you happen to look in the world, in the Middle East, in Africa, in his native Latin America, and even he referred to the conflict still going on between North and South Korea, the fact there's been no end to the state of war which has existed for decades between those two countries. And he says without peace there's no future for the world. That people have to resolve their conflicts. And then he went on to talk in a much more personal way about all those who've suffered. Not only those who've suffered from violence, he mentioned the he mentioned the Berlin terrorist attack, but also the children who have been suffering in Syria, the children who've been suffering in other ways as well, brought over from Africa across the Mediterranean on these overcrowded boats, and many of them losing their lives, and the children who are hungry because they're malnourished.
In the history of Urbi et Orbi messages from the Pope, is this one unusual?
The theme is not unusual, but I would say, as with all Pope Francis's speeches, this one is extremely heartfelt. He is a man who is vividly aware of the suffering in the world among what he calls the marginalised, the people on the periphery, the people who live on the edge. And what's been a constant theme of his 4 years as Pope has been the attention he pays to people who he says live on the edge of society, who live in very poor countries. I vividly remember his phrase the day after his election when he held his first news conference here in Rome, and he said, "I would so much like to have a church of the poor." And he has campaigned vigorously on behalf of the world's poor, of those who are deprived and who don't take part in the creation of wealth and have no participation in the distribution of wealth in the world today.
David Willey there, speaking from Rome. For the first time in almost 30 years, Queen Elizabeth has missed the Christmas Day church service at Sandringham. Buckingham Palace says she's still recovering from a heavy cold. Later today, in a pre-recorded Christmas broadcast, she will speak of drawing strength from meeting ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Our royal correspondent Nicholas Witchell reports. And you can see Queen Elizabeth's pre-recorded speech later today here on BBC World News at 17:15 GMT. More than 100 skiers have been rescued after being trapped in cable cars above the mountains in Italy. One of the ski lifts failed in high winds. Caroline Davis reports. Now, some call tinsel tacky and old-fashioned, while others can't really imagine a Christmas tree without it. They used to be made of silver, making them affordable to only a few, but that's no longer the case. The BBC visited the UK's largest supplier of tinsel to reveal the magic behind the sparkly stuff. Well, let's just update you now on that breaking news from Chile. A strong earthquake in the Pacific Ocean followed by a tsunami warning has led to the evacuation of hundreds of people. We are hearing that people are being asked to stay off the beach. That's it for now. See you soon.